Hey there, mom friend. Do you sometimes feel overwhelmed with all the things that come with raising a small human being in the midst of trying to figure out this whole adulting life? Well, you are not alone. Welcome to the MommAdulting podcast with your fellow mom friend, Michele. Here, we build a judgment-free community of millennial moms who are just trying to figure it all out. In each episode, I share tips, tricks, stories, and a whole bunch of unsolicited advice on how to navigate some of the challenges we face as moms, such as defining our career paths, nurturing our extra-maternal relationships, meaning relationships that don't involve our children, making time for self-care, and identifying what we need in our current seasons. Now, mom friend, I don't have it all figured out, but I know that together we can start making progress. Before we get started, let's take a moment. Let's take a deep breath. In and out. Let's take our masks off. Let's turn our vulnerability on. Let's let our guards down. Let's raise our hearts up. Ready? Great. Let's jump in. This is the first official episode, and I am so stoked that you are tuning in. I was talking with one of my closest mom friends a couple of weeks ago. She shared that she had just gotten a $25,000 promotion at work. Listen, I am the type of person who believes deeply that I am blessed by association. So it wasn't just my mom friend receiving the blessing. I got blessed. She and I had been praying over her work and finances for more than a year. So you can understand why my only response was, won't he do it? Even though I was over the moon, my mom friend wasn't. As a single mom with a full-time career and attending school part-time, she could not afford to give away any more of her time. Then, my mom friend told me something that made me pause. During the job offer, she politely told the hiring manager that if the position is going to require her to work a whole lot after hours, then she was not interested. Listen, first of all, let me just say my mom friend is my role model. I was in complete admiration of her boldness. Secondly, I found myself in a place of reflection. Would I have had that same level of boldness if I were in her shoes? Over the last few years, especially after having my firstborn, I've been evaluating what I am and am not willing to do to advance my career. Though I would like to say that I would have been just as bold as she was, I know for sure that on multiple occasions, I have not been. I have allowed others to dictate my time instead of setting the boundary to know what was okay and what was not. Boundary. That is a good word. Yeah. The way I see it, values make up our line of defense. Now, don't worry. I'm not about to talk football. I really do not even know enough to talk about it. But just think about it with me. When you value something, you put certain measures in place to make sure it is upheld as much as possible. Let's say you value having a healthy lifestyle. If so, you probably engage in some form of exercise and conscious eating habits. So if a friend invites you to a fish fry, but you're vegan, you might accept your friend's invitation for social purposes, but you will also more than likely BYOF, bring your own food, or eat something that will fuel yourself before you go because you believe veganism is the best lifestyle for you. Even if someone comments about you being particular about your food, you take it with grace and stand firm on your personal commitment, your boundary. So, a few unspoken things I learned about boundaries from my mom friend in the conversation we had. 1, you have to know where you stand, because where you stand determines your boundary. What do you believe and what do you value? Number 2, when your boundary is tested, will you stand or will you fall? Again, this goes back to your value. If you fall, it was never a true value. You value something else, like someone's approval or the perception of perfection. Trust me, I know from personal experience. And number 3, there is risk in everything you do. That's just part of life. What are you willing to risk and for how long? Something will always have to give. Personally, I am all for the boss mom. At one of the organizations I used to work at, all the leaders who were linked directly above me in the organizational chart were women. The top leader over the entire organization was pregnant with baby number 4 at the same time I was pregnant with my firstborn. I was so confused. How in the world was this woman still standing? I went to my car for every lunch break to sleep because I literally could not keep my eyes open. How is she running the largest organization in the city with 3 other kids at home and another one on the way? To this day, I do not have an answer. But what I do know is she has a value system in place that fuels her to do what she does, and she is willing to take all risks associated with her decision. For me, I value being available for my boys and have opted to not consider certain jobs because I did not want to feel like I had to overcommit to the organization who was paying my bills. I took a stance, yes, but I did not allow my value to be tested because I felt safer and more in control by deciding my own consequence. It's less risky that way. But where there is no risk, there can be no growth. The Lord has given each of us the free will to make more choices than we can ever perceive. One of those choices is how we use our voice. I believe God has given each one of us the grace to be able to speak in a way that feels true and authentic to whom He has made us to be. So here's some advice, mom friend. Steward your voice and your choice wisely. So up to this point, I know I've been focusing mainly on career, but boundaries also apply to our mothering. As I mentioned before, I have 2 young boys. Covenant will be 4 in January, and Ekle just turned 19 months at the time of this episode release. I don't know if you are a boy mom, but Lord have mercy. These children of mine are relentless in their pursuits. You hear me, mom friend? But I will throw a little tip. Having your kids closer together in age not only means they grow up together, but it also means when you learn a lesson about a specific development phase with one child, you'll be able to almost immediately apply it to the next. Combine and conquer, mom friend. Let me say it again. Combine and conquer. Okay, so now I'm going to get super personal here, but that is why vulnerability is on. Am I right? All right, so both my boys push every boundary every day. Ekele appears to be my quiet child, but he is a screamer. You hear me? And his screams sound so angry all the time. They aren't the normal baby cries. Oh no. Oh no. They pierce through your soul as if he's demanding to get what he wants, the way he wants it in that moment. He has been doing it basically since he came out the womb. I will say he's gotten a little bit better, but my husband and I, we still have work to do. Anyway, A few months ago, I decided it was time for Ekele to learn some manners. He was about 15 months old, which to me is old enough for him to understand how to respond appropriately. I was still breastfeeding at the time, and he typically wanted to bond the moment we got in the door from work. On this particular day, I was tired of responding to his screaming demands. When my husband was a child, his mom always told him that manners carry you through the world. That's the best I can do in my non-Jamaican accent. But I more so got popped in the mouth when I was growing up if I was not respectful. So I too learned the invaluable principle. All in all, it was a no-brainer for my husband and I to adopt the value of raising respectful and mannerly kids. Now back to this particular day. Instead of me whipping out the goods and letting Ekele have his fill, I showed him how to sign the word please. I was establishing a boundary in that moment based on the value I was taking a stance for. Now listen, mom friend. The boy absolutely refused. He cried for about a solid hour, at which point I decided to just leave him to himself, let him release his emotions, and go make dinner. Now, I also usually breastfed him before going to bed as well. And this same night, he screamed and cried again when I told him to ask for milk. I showed him how to sign the word please several times. I even went so far as to take his hand and to use his hand to sign it for him so he knew what the motion felt like. But he just hollered. I thought maybe signing milk would be an easier thing for him to do, so I said and signed the word milk. Again, he refused. So you know what I did, right? No, ma'am, I did not give in. I stood by my value. It was hard. It was risky. But I would rather face and battle engorgement than to face and battle an unruly child. Day 2 came along. After work, I encountered the same yelling, screaming, and temper tantrum. I didn't yell at him or tell him to stop crying. Just like you and I, we need to release our emotions. I believe that kids do too. So, a bit of unsolicited advice. Let your kid cry after you tell them no. They're learning how to cope with not getting what they want. If you want to teach them breathing techniques, that's fine. But try not to make them feel bad for responding to how they feel. So anyway, later that evening, when it was time for bed, I told him to sign milk. He began his temper tantrum, but I kept encouraging him to communicate with me in a way that was respectful. After about 10 minutes, y'all, he signed milk. The level of pride I felt in that moment was overwhelming. I think I actually shed a few tears. As minute as it might sound, I conquered the fearful thought of, what if my child doesn't like me because I'm not giving him what he wants? Because I made headway in getting Ekele to ask for milk, to this day, he now says or signs please almost every time he wants something, and thank you after he receives it. It was definitely worth the 2 days of discomfort. And I also believe that our bond has grown. It might sound crazy, but I feel the difference in his level of respect for me. So, some more unsolicited advice. Hold out on fulfilling your kids' every desire. When they see you are serious about the program, they'll get with it. And to follow up with the tip, get clear on your boundaries. Once you do, the results are priceless. So as we wrap up, I want you to write down these questions and then take some time to answer them when you have a moment. What do you value? And do you truly value it? Will you stand by that value, especially when it is tested? And what are you willing to risk and for how long? It is all up to you, mom friend. There is no right or wrong answer. At the end of the day, you have to be authentically you. I'm not a devout follower of hers, but mom friend Brene Brown once said, "Don't you dare ever betray yourself." I will leave you with this word of scripture. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23 in the NIV reminds us, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Mom friend, you get to determine your boundary. If you make it a wall, nothing can flow in or out. Want some advice? Always make sure you stay in a place of flow. Can I get an amen? Well, that's all I have for you today, mom friend. Thank you so much for tuning into this inaugural episode. I just have to say that I am super duper proud of myself for stepping out of my comfort zone. Getting the chance to build this community is so worth it. I hope something I shared blessed you. Please leave a comment letting me know your greatest takeaway and the boundaries that you either have in place currently or that you want to put in place. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already. You don't want to miss a single episode. I hope you tune in next week. Remember to grow a bit today so you can love tomorrow a little more. Until next time, make sure your shirt is not inside out and your skirt's not twisted. You got this, mom friend.